You are listening to the Real Men Feel Show with your hosts, Andy Grant and Appio Hunter. Real Men Feel encourages men to allow and express all of their emotions. Despite what you may have been taught, all emotions do serve you. Real Men Feel is committed to engaging in discussions that most men aren't having, but you don't need to be a man to join us. The Real Men Feel Show is produced live each Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern for your growth and enjoyment. Listen to us on podcast platforms including iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. You can also watch the show on YouTube by visiting realmenfeel.org/YouTube. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe on iTunes by visiting realmenfeel.org/iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at realmenfeelorg and on Facebook, facebook.com/realmenfeelshow. All links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. Show your support for Real Men Feel by shopping at realmenfeel.org/swag, by visiting digitaltipjar.com/realmenfeel, or even text us a tip. You can show some love for Real Men Feel by texting Real Men Feel, that's all one word, to 504-226-5306. You'll receive a link back to complete your tip and choose the amount. This is a weekly program, and your reviews, comments, feedback, and participation are welcome during the live show and anytime in our Facebook group, on Twitter, or at realmenfeel.org. Now, let's dive into this week's show. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Real Men Feel. This is your host, Andy Grant. And with me for this special episode is my good friend, co-host, and co-founder of this whole experience, Mr. Appio Hunter.
Hey, Andy. It is really exciting to be here tonight, especially since we are at, as you said, a special episode.
Yep. And, oftentimes I've said that before, and it's like, the Bobby Brady after school special. There's some sort of deep meaning. And wait, there is some deep meaning to this episode, but it's more of a lighthearted special episode. This is actually our 100th episode.
Yeah. It's like, whoa. Yes, right? This has been such an amazing journey, thinking that, I think we started in February of 2016, right?
Yep.
And that's when we just kind of like, hey, let's just do that just for fun, see how far we go with it. I don't think either of us really had any idea that we would have come this far and done as many things as we've had and had as many fascinating conversations as we've had.
No, indeed. And so I look back, and when we started, the goal was to do a monthly show.
Yeah.
So we premiered on Blab. Which was it doesn't exist anymore, but it was a cool idea. You could have up to 4 guests, 4 people taking part in a video conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So it always looked like almost like the Hollywood Squares, but he had 4 in a block, and we went there and we would just talk to each other. Initially, I think we did 5 episodes of you and I talking to each other, and then along with whatever blabbers wandered in and found us. So
and we had a few.
Yeah, the Blab community, you could see whatever being was recorded and it had a subject matter, and we said Real Men Feel, and we'd had different topics, and so we often had up to like a dozen people watching us, or sometimes volunteering and wanting to jump into one of the open seats. That's how it worked. But the show was really created to encourage men to allow for and express all of their emotions. And I feel like the biggest reminder we've repeated over the 100 episodes is to remind men that they are human beings.
Yes.
And that as human beings, we are emotional beings, and we are all entitled to express and experience that full range of emotions. It's not that here's what men are supposed to feel.
Exactly. In fact, in my own conversations that I've had with people, it's like, men are not the Vulcans of Star Trek. That's science fiction. And we're not these emotionless automatons either. I mean, yeah, there are people who do use logic, and there are people who are able to combine emotion and logic beautifully. But for the most part, I mean, we are full, complete human beings. And the only difference between us and women is our genitalia, pretty much. That's otherwise, I mean, we feel completely, we feel wholly. And that's why when you first approached me about this, I was ecstatic and ready to say yes, because it was just before we even decided to move forward with this project, it was a conversation that you and I had privately several times, when we were on different retreats together or just, talking or whatever. And just to see it come this far and reach this point where, yes, so many men have been able to jump in and be part of that conversation and say yes.
Yeah. And I know, again, this began as conversations, and, I honestly, I don't think I had any, if you had said no for some reason, I don't think I had a second idea. Like you were the only guy I had in mind of, similar experiences. So we had something in common to start in regards to personal growth and spirituality, but also enough varied experiences that you're bringing something totally different to the table than my experiences.
For sure. Yes. And I was honored and deeply humbled and honored when you invited me to join you, because yes, and I had a very similar perspective as well. It's like Andy we have the shared path that we've had, and yet a totally different perspective and totally different experiences as well, shared experiences and different ones as well. And it's really contributed to an amazing conversation. 2 years in and going strong.
Yeah. 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5 years. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah. It's right. Yeah, time-wise. And it was really, so I thought it was later, but again, looking back at the dates and when we made shows, it was the second episode. So we waited a month. Our second episode was in March. And that was the one, let's just do this weekly. Yeah, this has been fun. Why are we waiting a month?
Exactly. And also I remember that we initially were going to do it for just like a half hour. And I think those first few episodes were pretty much just like restricted to a half hour. But when we started realizing that these conversations were starting to get really interesting, and the people who wanted to be part of it were bringing so much more to the conversations, it just became an hour. And sometimes it was significantly more than that.
Yeah. I think 90 minutes is the longest show.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, an hour is definitely is become the norm. And now I can't imagine now trying to force a conversation into 30 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Especially, if there's like so much meaty stuff to get into. So yeah, it's.
So do you remember who the first guest was? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, you are, aren't you? Of course.
Because I did my research.
Yeah, exactly. You cheated a little bit. Yeah, you knew I wouldn't have too much time to be able to do the research ahead of time. So, okay, you know what? I am trying to remember. Me being very, I think related to Dory the fish, it's kind of a hard one.
Even if you had looked.
I should have looked. I was tempted to.
It was Nick Bro.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it was episode 6. That was the first time we invited someone else to have a scheduled guest and be a grown-up show or something like that. And
right.
And again, because it wasn't when we started, it was just discussions and people want to be on this. Oh, they want to know what date they can be on. All right, that's the thing.
Yeah. When he first told me that, I'm like, really? Okay, cool. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Nick Bro, author and coach Nick, talked about the power of joy. And then, wow, how many times has just joy been a topic as well? And
oh my gosh. Yes. Yes, exactly. I mean, that has been one of the most common themes that we've explored.
And so we've gone on, and I could be off by one or two. I think we've had 65 different individual invited guests. So that's not counting the times that we had panels of guys on, or it's not counting Lori, all the times that she's been in the background or has been more active.
She's been our unofficial third person who's really been part of it pretty much from the beginning.
Yeah, she's definitely the most consistent, and she's not part of it today, if anyone wondering. But she's usually here and taking part live and often chiming in via a comment or speaking up and adding more perspective.
For sure.
And again, just looking back, we've had a lot of repeat guests.
Yes.
I started to list them all individually, but it became too long and I didn't want to then risk missing someone too. But
Who's the one that we had on the most? I think it was Pete Kassabun, wasn't it?
That was my thought too. So I
Right.
did the math to make sure. So yeah, Pete's been on 3 times,
Okay.
but Anthony Simeone has been on 3 times plus a panel.
Yes.
But
yes.
Pete was on 3 times with both of us. Anthony was on, might have been at least once, maybe twice, about MGTOW, and it might have just been me.
Right.
That more recent.
Yeah. The MGTOW conversations I wasn't a part of. That was one of those things where I just wasn't feeling very energetically aligned with it. Just for for full disclosure, for those of you who may not have known that I was available to be part of those conversations, it just didn't feel like a conversation that I felt energetically aligned with.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah.
No, and that was I guess I would call that was the most interesting sidetrack, and it wasn't something, not an organization or a philosophy or a movement that I was aware of at all. So I appreciated exploring it. But by the last show that I'm on the show thinking, I just don't care about this anymore. Like I felt tapped out on the subject. But
for sure. Yeah. And I personally think it was amazing and wonderful that both of us were actually open to exploring that. And again, it's very much aligned with who we are as individuals, but aligned with the mission of Real Men Feel, and that is to have an open space for all discussions, judgment-free discussions as well. And that's exactly what took place. And so that one I honor and feel like it was necessary to do, but just not one that I energetically could participate in without being needing like a month to recover afterward.
Yeah. And I think, correct me if you feel it was different, but I think the first time that we consciously went beyond our comfort zone in views or opinions was doing the show about Trump and letting men come on and talk about how much they love President Trump.
Yes, and honestly, I love the fact that we have stayed in touch with I call them our friends that we've made on that show. And in spite of the differing opinions that we have politically, we all have pretty much the same goal and different paths to get there, but we all are willing to support each other in that. And I thought that was amazing. In fact, that was really one of those conversations that I genuinely enjoyed.
Yeah. There are a lot of enjoy. And I was thinking about some people oh, but my friend was, wait, he wasn't a friend. He was a guest first. And then he can't
it is right, exactly. Those lines have been blurred so much.
Yeah. Right. And again, if you've only listened to an episode or two of the podcast or just right now, we've always had a private group within Facebook. There's a public page where we just post the shows and you can like it, but there's also a private group, and it's been neat to see that organically grow and be really active at times, then kind of get quiet at times. But it's always a place that I hope anyone feels that they can share anything. But a lot of show topics have come from there.
Yeah.
Discussions about how different shows and topics went can happen there. But yeah, one of the Trump guys, Tony, is itching to come back and just let me back on. And so I told him we'll get paid if and when the North Korea summit happens, like I said, let's get past that, and can come on and really, proudly talk about what a great job it was. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But by the time you're listening to this, is there one Korea? Are there 5 Koreas? I can't tell.
Right. Have we lobbed any bombs at each other yet? Or
hopefully not. Hopefully
not. Yeah.
Primarily peaceful planet, hopefully.
Right. Back in the 70s when, China was closed off and, pretty much isolated from the rest of the world, much the same way that North Korea is now, there was a saying, only Nixon can go to China. And it could very well be only Trump can go to North Korea.
Yeah.
And Nixon was pretty much vilified by many, many people in the same way back in the late 60s and early 70s that Trump is vilified now.
It's funny. I've only heard them compared from the negative, but so successes of Nixon that even Trump's successes are kind of mirroring what he did well. So.
Exactly. And most people will not recognize the fact that, Nixon was the one who opened us up to having a frenemy relationship with China. And who knows what could happen? So yeah, it could be that some of the most controversial people out there are the ones who are able to actually kind of get us to move forward, in spite of all the other bullshit that goes on. But yeah. So anyway, this wasn't a Trump show. This is more of a let's look at all the fun things that we've done over 2.5 years and 100 episodes.
Yeah, because we've gotten political. We've talked about the MGTOW, the men's rights kind of fringe thing. And one thing I do want to give them credit, because I just really discovered it, talked to people that even though we don't agree with kind of some of the practices and their thinking, MGTOW keeps sharing that their goal is meant to be happy. And so I love and support that. And it is neat that there could be so many different ways to get there.
I am in complete agreement with you. In fact, I have a friend here locally in Salt Lake who is very much of a MGTOW mindset. And he is a good friend of mine. And we've had some great conversations. And I really think that the whole distinguishing thing about that really just has to do with the anger. I think if there was less anger, it could potentially be a very, very positive movement in terms of helping men understand that they are first and foremost independent human beings, and they can choose to share their lives with whomever they wish to share their lives with. Same thing with women. Women are first and foremost independent human beings. And yes, if you look at sociology and everything else, we are very, very social animals. We live in social groups. We need that interaction. But as far as relationships are concerned, not necessarily the romantic relationships. We don't have to have the romantic relationships. Yes, they're nice. They're wonderful. They can enhance our lives so much. They're not absolutely 100% necessary. So that's one thing I actually would agree with the MGTOW ideas.
Yep.
So
cool. Yeah, and another we had our, I don't know what to call it, our very sexual period where we had Diva and Kimberly on. So both were on twice, and around the same, within months of each other.
Yes.
Yeah, but they both had experience as escorts at some point in their lives, some active, some in the past. But yeah, those are some wild, just talking about pussy and dick.
Absolutely. And honestly, those are some of my favorite conversations, to be totally honest. Not because they were sexual in nature, but because they were so insightful. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of pussy and dick conversation and a lot of humor and a lot of sometimes crude humor and so forth. But at the end of the day, just being able to see into just how both messed up and also incredibly almost vulnerable, messed up as far as the politicians who take advantage of these women, and in both politically as well as sexually. It's like, no, they're more than willing to go and hire an escort, but then do everything that they possibly can to keep them in the marginalized aspects of society. And then the men who use the escorts as almost like their form of therapy.
Yeah.
Because they can't find intimacy in other ways. So that was, honestly, those were some of the most insightful and fascinating discussions that we've had over 100 episodes.
Yeah. I too was surprised that it wasn't just about, I want to get laid. It was discovering how much value sex workers add to a lot of individuals' lives.
Yes.
Beyond companionship, but the, healing and expressing and nurturing and counseling and psychology. And I think Kimberly was pursuing degrees make this really part of her, another, I don't know what to say, a more educated aspect of what she's doing.
Give herself a more rounded, complete, being able to really, really add value. If you want to speak in purely economic terms, she's adding value to these transactions, quote unquote, that were taking place. But she was doing so from such an incredibly human and humane way. I mean, that was one of the things that really stood out to me about Kimberly. And then Diva, I mean, I just, we have to give a shout out to Diva, because her conversations, to this day, I just love following her on social media and hearing her insights. And, she, again, just added so much incredible layers, so many layers to the conversation, and really, really helped open my eyes to so many aspects of just human nature and humanity, and things about guys that I never would have thought about, because we tend to be blinded toward each other.
Yeah, and she is such a unique and outgoing personality. I love seeing her on social media. I love to see her stepping out and getting bigger and seen and heard and speaking and sharing more too. Because she's I thought she was phenomenal. Yeah,
for sure.
We've happily stumbled into I feel like a lot of phenomenal people. Right.
Yes. You know what? I have to pause you there for a second, because your audio was breaking up. There was kind of like a little spotty.
Oh,
at least on my end, anyway.
All right.
So, heads up.
One of the joys of podcasting from different locations.
Right. Exactly. Let's see. How many times have we met in person, Andy? Wow. I think 2 or 3 times.
What's the third? I think I can only think of 2.
I was wondering if there was a third. That's right. We were maybe going to get together when you were out here on vacation. Yeah. And we were thinking about it, and then it wasn't able to work out. But yeah, so there was Boston, and then there was Key West.
Yeah.
And that was it. We had planned a third time, but yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wow. Dang. And
it's funny. Like
amazing.
Again, and even in the last. Wow. So that means wow. So Key West was over 2.5 years ago. It was 3 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I thought at some point we'd both be at the same event and do a live together podcast at some
point. Right? Yeah. Oh my gosh. And here we are. It's amazing. It really, if you think about it, it's kind of crazy to think that here we are 2.5 years later, and we still haven't been able to do a, Real Men Feel show together.
Yeah. And actually, earlier this year, probably after making 75 shows, I took some training in how to make a podcast. And then it was all like, never have your hosts, separated by different rooms. You want them together and have the best sound quality. And oh well.
Oh well. And so far, it's actually worked really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, I've listeners out there, let us know if something doesn't. No one has ever called me out and sent an email and said, "Wow, I like what you're talking about. But you guys sound like absolute crap." I've not gotten that feedback.
Yeah, but for some reason, like right now, you're just really, really staticky. Is all. At least on my end. Hopefully, it's not on the recording. But
all right, we'll find out. It'll be good to talk about technical issues and then have lots of them.
Right. Exactly. And true, we have had to do some audio editing in the past, haven't we?
Oh yeah. And that's one of that's been one of the challenges of having guests. And one thing I liked, we've had lots of guests that weren't professional speakers or coaches or authors, just guys, just regular everyday guys, and it was their first time being on anything that anytime it had asked them to share their story. We've had, I remember when, Steve Boyer from the group, who was upset. The private group wanted to leave and said, well, come on the show. And he was brave enough to do it. And, he had never done anything like that. Yeah.
And yeah, that's an episode I remember. And he was great. Let's see what other guys have come on that had never really done this before.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
Yeah. A lot of the talk about, sexual abuse, a lot of childhood trauma. Yeah, we've had a lot of. That's one of the things I'm proudest of, that we've created this place where people felt comfortable enough and safe enough to, share publicly, perhaps for the first time ever, some of the horrible things that they've experienced.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, and that is something that I don't like to toot my horn. I'm somebody who's always kind of to try to be very, very humble about a lot of things, but I think that's something that we can be proud of, is the fact that we have been able to create that space where men can indeed feel that safety to share some deeply vulnerable things.
Yeah, and that vulnerability and authenticity is another thing that I'm really proud of for each of us and for the show overall. and encouraging that and allowing that, and even guys that aren't guests on the show ever, but maybe can take that and follow that lead in their own lives when they communicate with their loved ones, with their boss, with whatever's going on for them.
Yes, exactly. And I know that there have been guests who have reached out after the show who have said that the experience has allowed them to take that and be more authentic and speak more truthfully as they go out after that experience.
Yeah, because and we don't always just play the host role. We have both been kind of guests on our own show at times, and sharing personal experiences. And we've both have multiple times talked about the loss of our dads,
Yes.
The loss of pets, dealing with depression, suicidal thoughts. That's bubbled up more often than I would like over the past 100 episodes.
Right, we've aired a lot of our own shit out there.
Yeah.
In fact, just a couple of nights ago, I did have an opportunity to step in as the guest host for the PPC America's Call and Project Positive Change, which we both participate in, and the America's Community Call. And I'm not sure if did you ever meet Bronwyn Clee at all through?
Yeah, from Facebook I know her. Yeah, not in person.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so she was actually the guest that night, and I know she's just this amazing woman. I absolutely love her, and her thing is helping people turn shit into fertilizer. And it just reminded me about that. It's like, how many times have we been able to take our own shit and really turn it into fertilizer in the course of 100 shows?
Yeah, and because it's so in 2016 we did 41 episodes, but in 2017 we only got 31.
Right.
It's because a planned break we were going to take in the summer got long because I had a lot of unplanned shit that was yet to be fertilizer in my life last summer.
Indeed. But you know what? It was also, again, as since we were talking about the different paths, the different twists and turns that we've taken in the course of 100 episodes. We've taken in the course of 100 episodes. One of those has been that spiritual path, that deeply spiritual path, and you being able to talk about your work with Akashic Records, me dealing with my own deep spiritual connection with the different realms and so forth, and hiding a little bit as Samuel initially, and then just like, well, I'm always just plugged in and tuned in. That I think was also going along, and on that spiritual thing, that break, that unplanned extra long break, wound up being exactly what was needed and perfectly aligned to really be able to take things up to the next stage. So, yeah.
I mean, certainly in the moment it can be difficult to see the benefits and the gifts, but I'm totally right there with you in that, everything unfolds as it best can.
Absolutely,
unless we fight it along the way, and even then it does. But we can, at least I can make it unfold more difficult than it needs to be.
Oh, I've done the same. Oh, trust me. I have the same capacity, and sometimes I'll take it. I turn it into an art form at times, making it simple things difficult. Oh, gosh. Yeah. So what other themes have we explored? What other detours have we taken?
So one big, I've had a number of guests that have turned into things in my personal life. I've taken what was shared by a guest and run with it, outside of the show even. And the first time, I think it was the first time, was the Mankind Project.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Boysen was on and just talking about their weekend, and we were learning about it. And I had heard of it, but I didn't know anything about it. But he intrigued me enough, and as luck would have it, we were just a few weeks away from their New Warrior Adventure Training Weekend happening here in Massachusetts. So, I was like, shit, he got me interested.
Yeah, why not?
Do this. Yeah, and it rocked my world. We've had more shows about it in the aftermath, and then I also have volunteered to be the staff, and we did a show after that. So, and numbers-wise, those have been some of our most listened to episodes when we talk about the Mankind Project and share that experience.
Indeed.
That was a big one for me.
I would agree, and that even really kind of segued into both of us becoming columnists with the Good Men Project. And even though I've had to kind of step away from my weekly column for now because of another huge project that I've been working on, you have gotten very, very involved. In fact, many of our more recent guests we've been able to find through your contacts and through your work on the Good Men Project as well.
Yeah, right. We so is Michael Kasdan came out and talked about the Good Men Project, and again, it's another website. I didn't get time to read stuff. That was my attitude towards it at the time. Yeah, he was on, and yeah, we both got asked, "Hey, would you like to write?" And I was like, "Oh my god, write
Like,
something!"
hell yeah!
Like, oh, I was like, I can't write something every week for my own sites. How am I going to do it for somebody else? And,
right? And it was amazing how we were able to
makes it happen, though.
Yes.
Yeah. And so now, yeah, I like it. Yeah, and then so I'm now an editor, and I'm always, working in recruiting, and yeah, when I talk to potential guests to be on Real Men Feel, I find, oh, do you have a blog? Yeah, and so I'm always like almost recruiting for both things, and they cross pollinate a lot. So that's really, again, a surprising turn that wouldn't have happened without this show.
Yeah, exactly. So many positive, wonderful things have definitely happened and come out of this. I would say even the stuff that at the time that we were going through it may have seemed like it was just awful has ultimately turned into this massive, incredible, blessing and enhancement of our journey. For sure.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Wouldn't discount that a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I encourage if and again, it will be. I think everyone, instead of everyone's famous for 15 minutes, I think everyone's going to have a podcast or some sort of media outlet of their own before they die, and I encourage that. But again, the more you can talk about yourself and realize it's not in a pompous, egocentric way, but share what you are going through to let other people who think they're alone realize, oh, I'm not as alone as I thought. And that someone's going through the same thing, or that someone has survived the things that I'm going through. But all of that, again, back to communication and authenticity and vulnerability.
Yes.
And those aren't really words that are commonly associated with men.
No, it's true. They simply aren't. And that's another interesting thing I think has surfaced through this work, through our podcast, is that in spite of the internet being a great empowerer and making so much information available to us through so easily, there's almost so much information out there. So many of the resources that have existed for men almost get lost in the shuffle. It's almost as if of less of what's going on. At least at times, I certainly feel that way. I felt like I learned more through my own interpersonal human connections than through the internet. But interestingly enough, it's been both at least from my own experience, it's been both a curse as well as a beautiful and incredible enabler in the forms of being able to make connections that otherwise we never would have been able to make. And, a place where you can just get lost so easily. My point being that I honestly had no idea. I had heard of the Mankind Project through a friend of mine here locally in Salt Lake, because there's a chapter here in Salt Lake. But I hadn't been aware of the Good Men Project until after we started doing the episodes. And then, and it's funny because when you do like a Google search you hear about one thing, you do a Google search, then you start to see all the different threads that are interlinked. But I don't think that either of us would have been aware that there are so many small individual groups that really are dedicated to men's complete human wellness, had it not been for us just jumping in and just doing this.
Right. Yeah. And it was neat that, like, answering my calling, like I would just kept getting called to, like, I gotta do something for men. And that's the best way I could phrase whatever I was feeling back in the end of 2015, beginning of 2016. And, I work from home, have for, a decade. So I don't have a commute. I've never gotten into podcasts. So I don't know how many other, takes on men and masculinity, and I don't know how crowded this market is because I don't listen to them. So it was also kind of weird. Like, why do I
Right.
want to make this thing that I never consume? It's kind of
Right. Well, that's the crazy thing. It's not crowded, in spite of the fact that we've discovered that there's so many other people doing similar work. Each of them has their own unique audience, and we're all still looking for a way to network with each other and to bring it all together so that so that men are aware of these resources. Because far too many men don't realize that these resources exist, and that kind of speaks to the whole information dilution through so many different channels, and yeah, there's information is all available to us, but when there's so many different things and so many different voices, screaming at us, the clickbait stuff and ways of being able to get you to manipulate the human psyche in order to get them to go towards things that make them money and so forth, the real information that could be truly beneficial to men and the women in their lives, just to humanity. I look at it really, yes, we're focused on men, but in reality, the benefit is to humanity.
yeah.
We
Again,
serve everyone.
yeah. Going back to one of those little secrets that we reminded guys, men are human beings.
Yep. Surprise.
May want to deny it, may not like it, but yeah, you're
And there are times I wish I wasn't.
Is there anything that strikes you from the beginning, from about 2.5 years ago through 100 episodes, of kind of what your opinion or idea or feeling of where men were to where we are now? Is it the same? Has it changed? What shows up for you there?
It's interesting. I think it's kind of a mix of all of the above. There are still far too many men who haven't yet been reached. There's still far too many men who are caught up in the narrative of you need to be an emotionless, buck it up, suck it up, tough guy. And yet there have been a number of men that you and I both have met through the show and through just conversations about the show that have suddenly been able to start to feel a glimmer of hope and have started to reach out and find the additional resources that can help them let go of the emotional barriers that they've raised. And I think we've also been able to tap into that wider movement, that wider current, and starts to really kind of bring things together. Every single piece, we're definitely a piece in that bigger puzzle, and I'm not sure how big of a piece we are of it, but I definitely feel like we fit perfectly into the space that we're filling right now, and being able to allow so many the people who are seeking to find us and become aware of the resources that exist, either through us or through others that are linked to us. So yes, there's a lot more work to do. A hell of a lot more work to do. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what the most recent statistic is as far as the percentage of the worldwide population that is, the distribution between men and women. I think that last time I checked, it's something like women make up 53% of the U.S. population. But worldwide, I'm not exactly sure what that statistic is. It's fairly close to, a 50-50 split. So taking that into consideration, we're talking about at least 3.7 billion guys out there that could still, we could still reach.
Yeah. I feel like, because I feel like there's progress, but yeah, you realize, oh wait, there's more people that have been reached, and more people are changing, and positive things are happening, even though they can seem to feel painful in the moment. With the Me Too and the Weinstein thing just still unfolding and unfolding.
Yeah.
I do think when all of this settles down, everybody's in a better place.
Absolutely.
But
yes.
the chaos can feel uncomfortable for sure. But all of that progress and the awareness of men rising and their consciousness and realizing what are they thinking and doing and acting, and not just in a sexual harassment bullying mentality, but in every way,
In
in personal
every
ways.
way.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
But
And it's interesting because I certainly, ever since we started this, I certainly become much, much more aware of the conversations that are taking place around that need for men just to be able to be intimate, not in a sexual way, but to simply enjoy touch between each other, because that is such an incredible and important part of the human experience. And to be able to hug another man, to be able to place your hand on another man's shoulder, or even just hold their hand as they suffer, is something I've seen more of, become much more aware of, and that it is okay to do so without it turning into something like no homo thing.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all the things that technology can bring us, physical connection and touch is one of the things that it probably most destroys.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. And so I've become aware of that. More people are accepting of that and willing to break down, face their own discomfort behind it. But I'm also very much aware that there's still so far to go with being able to make that acceptable. And again, it just depends on the culture. U.S. culture is, of course, unique and yet highly influenced by Northern European sensibilities, which were very much like, men don't touch, men don't interact, or anything like that. And you can only really be physical with women, and then it becomes this like huge, sexually charged thing, which is now why we have Time's Up and Me Too. So there's so many things can be traced back to the mentality of what's masculine and what isn't, rather than creating the space and saying it is okay for you to just be a human being and express your humanity however you feel is best for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the foundations of creating this show, making this space to encourage guys to, you decide what being a man is, right?
Yeah.
Don't have society or the media or your dad or your grandparent, just don't have that foisted upon you.
Mm-hmm.
If whoever taught you how you're supposed to be a man was a miserable bastard, like, why follow that lead? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Feel what works for you and
Yes,
define yourself.
exactly. No one can live your life but you.
Indeed. Cool. So we've done a lot of looking back.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to?
Well, here we are at show 100, and it's actually time for me to say goodbye to Real Men Feel. Honestly, I do so with a lot of mixed emotion. We talked about this before we, started to record the show, and I was like feeling really, really good. Now all of a sudden I'm getting all choked up about it because it has been such an amazing journey. Looking forward, part of this project that I have alluded to earlier, that I needed to step away from a couple of my weekly writing projects so I could focus on that. We're now starting to get really, really intense as far as it's the next stage in the journey of me being able to serve men and me being able to serve humanity in general. Just overview what I've been working on is something which is it's all information which has been out there for literally hundreds and thousands of years, but we seem to not want to do anything with it. So I've been working with a very dear mutual friend of ours, and with my guides, being somebody who is kind of like a bridge between this realm and different realms, taking all of that and consolidating it into a simple process so that we can live in peace with ourselves individually, but that translates into peace collectively as well. So that's the big thing. And so that's why it's now time for me to say goodbye, but not farewell, to Real Men Feel, because it is time for me to step into that fully and completely. I have no doubt whatsoever that there's going to be a lot of work between the two of us, that we'll still have many things together that we'll be doing. But yeah, you guys, I won't be a regular fixture on the show anymore. It has been such an incredible journey. I'm so grateful for everybody who has been part of it, and most especially to you, Andy. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for saying yes that first request. 100 shows ago. Yeah, because yeah, again, as I said earlier, if you had said no, like, I didn't have a plan B, and I wasn't comfortable enough in my own skin at that point to do it alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, the topics, the discussions, this has been such a wonderful mixture of both of us.
Definitely.
And I do hope when your project is coming to completion that the first place you unveil it might be here.
Oh, hell yes.
And you could be an official invited regular person guest.
Right? That's exactly what I was thinking of, was the first place I would want to come back to and, officially unveil it and put it out there would be here. Absolutely, yes. So consider that a yes. And like I said, it's goodbye or ciao for now, not a farewell.
Yeah, well,
count on me being back regularly, just not regularly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I get it. And yeah, and thank you, and I love you. And again, this would not exist. So I thanks for your participation and dedication. And I honor your choice and your willingness to feel and decide to take a new action. Because again, that's a beautiful example of what we're inviting every human being to do.
Exactly.
What feels true to you.
What feels true to you, and most importantly, when do you know when you need to take a different path? And what's fascinating, Andy, is that our paths will still be parallel. They just won't be overlapping for the time being.
Yep. It just won't be a weekly gathering.
Exactly. It won't be a weekly gathering, but it will still be a regular gathering for sure. Cool. And thank you. I love you too, brother. And this has been one of the most joyous, most incredible, most amazing rides I have taken in my entire life. And the amazing part about it is that it wasn't at an amusement park, although we've had plenty of amusement along the way.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. So, so the Real Men Feel, the show is continuing. It is just, it's shifting, as everything in all of our lives does.
Indeed. Yeah, exactly. There's that evolution. There is that evolution. In fact, one of my favorite groups is an a cappella group, Pentatonics. Last year, they went through something very, very similar. When when Avi Kaplan, who was like the main bass singer and just a key founding member of the group, he decided it's time for him to take a step back and pursue a different path. I was just like, Pentatonics isn't going to be the same. and they found a new member, and they've continued to grow and evolve, and I've continued to enjoy and listen to their music and the things that they create. And so I see the same thing. We're both now going to be creating in parallel ways and being able to reach even more people and still have that same joint purpose. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'll be the person to say I am nervous as hell. But it is also necessary in order for us to be able to now, use that compound interest and reach as many people as we can.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the best with your creation and with the unveiling and with the reaching and the changing of lives, right?
Indeed. Yes. Yes. We are all part of the same big umbrella of doing this work jointly and having that beautiful, wonderful, positive impact, even if it's just for a few thousand or a few billion. It doesn't matter. I know that it's all aligned and it's all perfect.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much again. I've said it a couple of times already, but I'll just have to say it one more time, for being one of the most amazing parts of my journey.
Thank you. Yeah. Again, honored. And again, I wouldn't be where I am today. The show wouldn't exist. Yeah. So thank you for all that you've given to me, to listeners, to guests, to everybody.
For sure. An honor and a privilege and a joy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Me being all about that joy,
And this episode is landing Independence Day week for everyone in the US. So so embrace your independence as Appio is, and identifying it and pursuing your independence, and your passions, your talents, your uniqueness, right? Celebrate all of that.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, indeed.
Beauties.
Indeed.
Oh, cool. Well, we have touched on lots of topics and subjects. I'm going to do my best to actually in the show notes on realmenfeel.org to kind of have links to the specific episodes that we've talked about in case you've missed them. Or want to listen to them again, have a binge-a-thon. I don't know, whatever.
All right. That would be fun. Just like there's Netflix binging, you can do podcast binging also.
Indeed.
Oh, that's great. Well, so everybody, thank you so much for being part of the journey, whether I've never met you or whether I have, had conversations with you once or multiple times. Each of you, thank you so much. And we'll definitely be seeing each other around for sure.
Beautiful. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Today, to all days, for all episodes, past, present, future. And I have to end these differently now. I'll be talking to you again soon, and we'll all keep tabs on what Appio's up to.
Absolutely. You guys take care.
Have a great night, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Real Men Feel. Until next week, visit realmenfeel.org or the Real Men Feel Facebook group and share what you thought of this episode. Please give this podcast a review on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you are discovering Real Men Feel. Reach out to us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Show us some love by visiting realmenfeel.org/swag or digitaltipjar.com/realmenfeel. Learn more about Andy Grant at theandygrant.com and Appio Hunter at appiohunter.com.